Hey guys, welcome to another episode number two with Tony McNicoll, a personal trainer with over, I would say, 10 years of experience in fitness and personal health. And today we're just going to be covering body, fitness, mindset, and also nutrition. Tony, how are you?
I'm very well, Paris. Thanks for having me on. Love the idea for your podcast. The whole concept's really gripped me, so I'm really happy to be here and have a chat with you.
No, I'm glad as well that you accepted. Would you like to start with an introduction about yourself and a little bit of your background and what brought you to personal training?
Yeah, sure. I've always been involved in fitness in some sort of way. I think most personal trainers have had a lifelong journey through fitness personally. I was involved in gymnastics when I was younger, and that's kept all the way through. I've got three kids; they're all involved in gymnastics as well. I was in sports development out of university. I did sport at uni, Edinburgh Uni. I started the Edinburgh University Gymnastics Club there. And then from sports development, it took me into a public speaking type of role through sort of events work I'd done with gymnastics. The public speaking role was like emotional intelligence training and resilience training with everybody from hard to reach kids to very professional corporate groups, finance companies, all sorts of things. And then from there, lockdown got in the way of all of that. So I was
Yeah.
involved in social care with vulnerable adults for 2 to 3 years. And then through that, I've sort of a blended career between personal training and social care now, fully focusing on the personal training. But the theme that goes through the work I've done is definitely on assisting others to be the best version of themselves. Is
Yeah.
the sort of my mantra for it.
Yeah. No, I like that mantra. I think I would say, yeah, I have a similar one as well. Like, I think we can always improve. And if you can improve, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't improve.
Yeah,
And especially in
absolutely.
health, I think it's such something so important. And like our bodies, it's something that keeps us intact. So I think the more we can improve our health and like we have like a fit body, the better it will be for the future. And like it's quite interesting because I believe you have the experience from like as you said, like primary school, kind of high school, all the way down to elderly people. So you
Yeah,
have seen the whole spectrum of a young life, let's say, kind of like a teenager all the way down to like someone in their like 70s 80s. Yeah, it must be an interesting one.
yeah. The thing that I come back to very frequently is that teaching, coaching like gymnastics to preschoolers
Yeah.
and
Sure.
adults who have no experience of gymnastics is very, very similar. It's the
Okay.
same level of incompetence, but just coming from a different angle. It's like the same barriers in the way, but
Yeah.
one group are going this way round and the other group are going that way round. Like
Yeah.
one group can't understand with their head and the other group can't understand with their body. So it's
Ooh.
it's a really interesting sort of challenge if you're in sort of
Yes.
health and fitness space, is to deal with a big broad spectrum of people with a different level of ability. And we do that every day. When you talk to different people, you speak to different people, you make accommodations and you change for them. But when it's directly your employment to get the most out of them, you're particularly focused on it. So I do really enjoy having maybe somebody who's in a retirement age coming in 1 hour, and then a super elite person coming in the next hour, and trying to sort of change gears like that is really interesting.
Yeah, and it also impacts yourself as well because you need to adjust to the right person to the personality that you're training to. You being able to adjust to the different people that you bring, that come to you is also quite interesting because like you cannot teach the same as a preschooler the same way that you would teach like an adult person. And I
Yeah,
do like the kind of the idea of the mind doesn't work for a preschooler, right? For a young person, and then for an adult, it's their body.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like as an adult, you've trained your body for however long you've been alive to do things in one way that
yeah,
you're very happy with, that accomplishes the goals that you've set yourself. But then somebody comes along with a new challenge for you, and you have to reset a lot of things.
yeah,
I mean, the concept for your take on this, the purple pill approach,
yeah,
where you're not the red pill and going extreme in one direction, or the blue pill saying absolutely no and going in the other, sort of finding this middle ground. is
Yeah.
people find a challenge that they want to take on, and that's very much that they're choosing to put their energy into that zone rather than trying to be the best at everything all the time. They're choosing to challenge themselves. And I find with adults who want to take up personal training or want to take up mobility training, calisthenics, or gymnastics, that they are particularly enthused to come in and really push that red pill bit for that 1 hour so they can go and switch off somewhere else, or just to come in and do what they're told for an hour, which a lot of people in professional jobs or parents, or from any sort of background, when they come in, they just want to be told what to do. And when I first started working with adults, I would assume that they had a lot of independent ideas about things, but they generally don't. They want to come in and have the security and satisfaction of being told what to do session by session, but have the opportunity to sort of feedback in what they would like to achieve. And it's getting that sort of nice blend of you accommodating their needs and looking at their goals and agreeing goals, but then being the authority and being able to confidently and competently say, this is the journey we're going to take you on.
Yeah. I think the right mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm still learning, but like I think the right mindset is not that you should come, do your personal training, 1 hour training, right? And then leave and then just live your life. But then I think it's like you need to make it into a lifestyle. You need to incorporate it that, like, yes, I'm going to be training for 1 hour intensely, but then I'm going to continue live healthy or intensely outside the gym. Is that what you would say kind of you mentioned by saying, like, people want to be told what to do for an hour and then they can go back to life because they satisfy that ego thing? Oh yeah, I have ticked the box of going to the gym. I'm happy now.
Yeah, I think you can take that approach. Some people do with training. Like, I've
Yeah.
been to the gym, now I can eat 500 Mars bars sitting on my couch watching Netflix. A lot of people have that sort of view. But I suppose to clarify what I mean is
Okay. Yeah.
more that people want to come in, they want to train intensely. They're going to go home and stick to the nutrition and the rest pattern and the recovery and all of that. They're going to do it with intensity, but they don't want to have to make lots of choices and decisions while they're in the gym. If you
I
turn
see.
up to a class, you are told what to do and you
Yeah.
just have to throw your body at it, and you can switch your brain off a little bit.
Yeah. How would you define fitness? And basically, like, what would you say are the fundamental components that contribute to a healthy body?
Yeah, I mean, health and fitness are sort of a balance of two slightly different things, aren't they? I mean, fitness is being able to do what you want, and you can establish that by art. Do you want to be the best marathon runner or part-time runner? Do you want to be the best at salsa dancing, or are you wanting to do rock climbing, or are you wanting to be able to do yoga classes or whatever it is? Like, fitness means being able to accomplish your goals. So fitness would just be, can you do what you want? And if you can't do what you want, then we need to establish a way to find out how to get there. And health means, are you alive and well with no aches and pains? So health would be functional, and fitness would be more towards like a performance end. For me, there's like 5 aspects to fitness. When I was working with preschool kids and watching my own kids grow up when they were very young, the bit that I saw is that they would start off as a very small baby and they would just have to respond to their environment around them. They feel a cold breeze, they don't like it, they cry, they have a sensation in their tummy, they don't like it, they cry. If something else goes on, they don't like it, and they cry. And that's babies for you. They just have the awareness coming through. But once they've got a bit of awareness, they can sort of relate to the environment a bit better. And kids go through physically a few changes. They start off just like rolling around. They develop in the sort of training literature, it would be proxima distal and cephalocaudal. So like from the inside out, the near side, the proximate to the distal end. So from like the middle of your chest out to your arm, you get
Okay.
a skill through each joint. So a small baby is just rolling around by their midline, and a more skilled performer as an adult would have, like a pianist, would have control right through their elbow, the wrist out to the tips of their fingers. So
Mm.
proxima distal, and then cephalocaudal is head to tail. So they start off getting control of the head, and then they can gain control of the rest of their body from that way down. And with that sort of idea in mind of going inside out, top down, kids develop that awareness, and then they have to balance it all up. So then they start balancing themselves. They sit and then they stand, and then they're able to actually move. So they get a coordination bit. So we've gone from awareness to balance to coordination. And then they get a bit stronger. They're able to pull themselves up on a table, climb up some stairs, and then they get endurance after that, where they can go for longer without rests. They need fewer naps and that sort of stuff. So that little sort of micro bit of development in a baby is similar to how we learn skills when we're adults as well. We start off with like controlling our midline going out towards our hands. If you're lifting like weights in a particular way, you start off learning how to control your core.
Yeah.
Something like, I don't know, yoga or Pilates is pretty good for that sort of thing, mobility training.
Hmm.
If you're advanced in something, you're going to go past the point of feeling in control, feeling balanced and coordinated in it, and then feeling quite powerful and strong, and then being able to perform it for lengths of time. And that's the sort of five elements of fitness for me. It's like the awareness, the balance, coordination, then strength, and then endurance at the end of all of that.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I've never heard of it. Is that something that you developed, or is that something that you have
Yeah,
read? You have,
yeah,
yeah.
that's well. The words are mine.
The words are, yeah, yeah,
Of,
yeah,
of why I put that down. Initially, it was related to emotional independence as well.
yeah.
And it was relating to physical independence. And with COVID coming in, unfortunately, sort of put a bit of a stop to a project
Mm.
I had to have an emotional intelligence class for younger primary school kids using physical competencies as a parallel, because it's very hard to teach abstract concepts to kids. So, for example, with awareness, so dealing with sensations, they would think about how their emotions were processed by processing physical sensations. So, for example, it's very easy to look at somebody else and see that they're in a bad mood, but you don't always notice you're in a bad mood. You just happen to be surrounded by idiots that day. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to pick up on your own emotions. So the idea was a kid would have a blindfold on, sitting in a chair, and be handed an object, and they'd have to hold on to it and describe it. And everybody else can see what the object is, but they're struggling to describe it because they've got limited ability to discern what the thing was. So that sort of thing. So emotional awareness relates to physical awareness, but it works very well in introducing people to new movements. So if
Yeah.
an adult's suddenly doing like a power clean,
Mhm.
which is a dynamic, powerful movement, usually done with lots of weight, they're not always used to applying their power and then moving around the bar, which is needed in that motion. So you find a way so they can experience the different stages independently and then start to bring chunks of them together, then bring the chunks together until they're doing one fluid movement. And it's a way of progressing through. It's how gymnastics is generally taught, but I put
Ah,
words around it
I
to
see.
make it easier for me to sort of establish at which stage you're at. If you can name something, it's easier to work with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. Yeah, for sure. Because like I think once you identify something and you have worded it has a name, then you know how
Yeah.
to kind of treat it. And I think, yeah, like that can work
The
in like
Japanese
many
are good
areas
for
of
that.
life.
The Japanese got loads of words for things, like Shinrin Yoku is the word that they use for forest bathing, to go out into nature and just bask. And they call it forest bathing, which is we don't have a word for it. We just say
No.
go for a walk. But
Yeah.
they say Shinrin Yoku. So as soon as there's a word for it, it's much easier to say, well, I need some of that thing, that specific quality. I think there's quite a few German words like that as well.
Are there?
I
Yeah.
can't remember the specific word for it, but it's Kummerspeck. That's the word.
Okay.
Grief bacon.
Uh-huh.
So when you get sad, you put on weight. So they
Yeah.
call it Kummerspeck, which is grief bacon, and that works quite well
Ah,
for me as well. As soon as there's a name for something, it's quite easy to put a handle on it. So if I'm looking at a client and saying, are they in an awareness phase, a balance phase, coordination, power, endurance phase? At which stage are they at? And then it's much easier to sort of teach the whole thing after that point.
I really love the idea. I like it. On a different kind of like aspect. So what are some common misconceptions about exercise and body image that you encounter with your clients when they first come to you?
Yeah, I think it's people will arrive and say a lot of things that they should be doing,
Hmm.
like what should I do for this? What should I eat? And anything relating to should kind of puts the sort of an unhelpful spin on it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a bad spin. I'd just say it's unhelpful.
Yeah.
The the whole idea of I should look like this and I should eat that and I shouldn't do this. It's an obligation and it's
Mm,
quite demotivating.
yeah,
So it's my response is usually, well, you could do this and you
yeah,
could do that, and there's a choice to make rather than you're choosing options and opportunities
yeah,
rather than obligations. But specifically, it's thinking you have to do whatever the latest fad or trend is. That would be the biggest misconception. Like if as soon as a new thing comes out, everybody thinks all the old stuff is rubbish. And that's not always the case. It's if a new thing comes out, you're adding to the whole body of knowledge rather than kicking something out, you're adding something new. So it's just because, I don't know, CrossFit's a thing doesn't mean it's not a good thing to go and do 3 sets of 12, then go for a run at another time, because CrossFit does everything at once.
yeah,
It doesn't mean that that's the best thing. It just means that that's another thing. You know, circuit training's always been there, so CrossFit's always been there, but people do it competitively now, so it becomes the only thing to do. So you should do that.
yeah,
Whereas the should thing is just kind of gets in the way a little bit. You don't. Otherwise, you end up a bit like David Goggins, who has to go like 3,000 miles an hour at absolutely everything,
yeah,
and does all these ultra marathons and is on the verge of death multiple times. And the thing that sort of intrigues me about that particular guy doing the things that he does, there are people in the exact same race as at him doing the exact same stuff he's doing with a big smile on their face, loving life, but he is hating it because he's putting himself through so much pain, which is admirable. But also, there's probably something else he could be doing with all of that energy rather than putting himself through all of these things. There are people that can accomplish what he's accomplishing with ease. So, what could he do with that much energy with ease and be more productive and happier and all that sort of thing? I don't criticize the guy's motivation, and I'm absolutely no position to say he's not doing something well, but it's intriguing to see he's got that much energy and motivation and he's doing something that he's probably not optimized for. So what could he be optimized for, and how amazing could he be at something else? So that sort of thing, if you're doing something and absolutely hating it, you're probably not optimized for it. So, what is it that you feel that your body and motivation, your background, your parenting, and all of that is optimizing you for? And that's the bit that you could do to greatest effect and greatest reward that you'll keep going a bit more at. So, I think the misconceptions are you have to keep up with the trend and you have to do the cool, trendy thing.
yeah,
And in terms of like body image, I mean, just open up Instagram and do hashtag fitness, and there's body stuff everywhere.
yeah.
There's a lot of body positive stuff out there with sport and fitness showing all the different types of Olympians, you know, the weightlifters and the shot putters next to the marathon runners and the sprinters. And it's like they're all elite athletes. It's just you choose what your elite is.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because I will start from David Goggins, and I do agree with you. Like for example, because I have listened to some of his podcasts and etc. I think he doesn't have like a kneecap or like something is wrong on his knees, and like he has replaced his both knees, and he
Mm.
shouldn't be running, and it's like just the sheer, I don't know, amount of like will that he's still
Yeah, yeah,
doing what he's doing is like ridiculous.
it's
And of course,
crazy.
like the motto is like stay hard, but like it's a very interesting question. Like, sure, do your run, like the ultra marathons and whatnot, but like, could he be optimizing for something else? Because like now he has a big platform, he could be doing way more or other things. And on the second point that you said about like optimizing for the best thing for your body or like the Olympics, for example, what you said, I think I saw a slogan, this isn't what an athlete looks like. And they
Yeah,
have different body types of athletes. I think that's a positive way of looking of bodies that like we don't all have to be six pack v shape guys, but like you can be strong but also I don't know what's the right word, like more heavy or like more
I don't know, more naturally
bulky.
built.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Like we don't all have to be slim and etc. And yeah, I think the Olympics did a good job with that, or like kind of that it shows you that like everyone can be a world class athlete. You don't have to be just a specific body type to be that. And I do agree with you on social media. If you open like your Instagram and you see like hashtag fitness, I think what social media sells is a very specific type of body. Let's say you have a like you have a new client, right? What's the first question that you ask them? Do you ask them about their goals? Like, is that where you start?
aside from all the like the friendly stuff,
Yeah.
and sort of getting to know people and all of that sort of thing, you'll find more out about somebody after they've said what their goal is, about what
Mm.
their actual goal is.
Yeah.
Because somebody might come in and say, I want this. And you go, oh, right, that's great. We can definitely work on that. So tell me a bit more about this. And you have a more sort of broad chat about what they'd actually like to do. And once you've sort of got down the, I want Instagram glutes and six pack abs and all of that, and you can sort of work your way through all of those levels of shoulds, and then you get down to the thing that they actually want to do. So my conversation's pretty straightforward, really. It's what's the first thing that you would like to do? Or is there anything else you'd like to do? What have you always wanted? And if effort and cost wasn't a thing, what would be the goal? Take fear, take motivation, take finance out of it. What would be the goal? And let's start working towards something like that. Because I think in fitness, it's very interesting that if you have a business goal, you want to grow your business, there's almost always a bigger business, unless your name's Jeff Bezos. There's always a bigger, whereas with your own body, there are people that will be fitter and stronger, but the only way that you're going to get fitter and stronger is by putting in effort. With a business, you could have a rich relative, you could have a lot of luck in another opportunity, but in physical fitness, you can't just toss a coin and one person gets guns and one person doesn't.
Yeah.
Not quite to the same extent. There's genetic differences, and we'll come and have a chat about that as well. But yeah, people want to start exercising for one reason. They'll walk in the door for one reason, but that's like their window dressing. And
Yeah.
then you have the conversation to sort of break down to what their actual goal is, and that I find that very interesting.
Yeah. For you personally, what should a person's goal be? From a personal fitness perspective, personal trainer perspective, like, if you
Yeah,
could install in someone's mind, or as a humanity overall, why should we exercise, or why should we start, taking care of our body?
yeah. So we get to sort of tell the whole world what to do now.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, nice. Joe Rogan, look out! Here we come.
Of course.
Um, yeah, absolutely. It's the tie between the physical and the mental for me. Is like if the whole world is in need of something, and we're going to say it's exercise, and
Yeah.
the reason for that would be it's the tie between the physical and the mental. I
Hmm.
think every culture at some point comes up with reinvents what health and exercise is. In the It used to be a thing that people just did in ancient Greece and like the Bronze Age because they didn't have machines. And
Yeah.
if you're dealing with an animal, it's still very physical. And then they got a bit more evolved, they got a bit more cultural, and then it became you exercised for the good of your health. And they had the whole, the Latin mens sana, corpora sana, and all of that. The Stoics had a great interest in exercise as well in Roman times, and then you fast forward right up to like the 19th century, and
Yeah.
the idea that people came up with was in the UK was muscular Christianity, where people they still had quite a religious bent on it, but they were putting a lot of gratitude and thanks in that way for the gift of their body by exercising and performing physical feats. And that sort of brought a whole very healthy culture of exercise around. And one of the main UK strongmen at the time, a guy called Eugene Sandow, it's his image that's in the top of the Mr. Olympia bodybuilding trophy, which is the biggest bodybuilding trophy in the world, and it's his image that's on it from the 19th century. So that's the influence that muscular Christianity's had. It's still held up as the absolute ideal, that sort of strong physique.
Yeah.
It's kind of drifted now. They just want to be as inflated and as massive as possible.
Yeah.
But the sort of idea of being strong as being a good thing in the UK started about the 19th century, kind of drifted a bit because people were busy with stuff in the start of the 20th century. But after that, we've come back round again, and now it's muscular culture, physical culture. People are in hashtag gym life and all of that sort of thing. So every generation and every culture seems to reinvent exercise, and the reason it keeps coming back in over and over again is because it's just the right thing to do. We have a body that needs to move around, and if it doesn't move, your mental state gets worse. It's a very rare type of person who never exercises and is completely fine and actually gets worse with exercise. A very rare thing. If you imagine sort of, I don't know, Stephen Hawking, to pick a very extreme example, totally unable to do the vast majority of things with his body, but still appear to be in pretty good spirits and able to achieve lots of things. And it's his intelligence is one thing, but his sheer dominance of his own condition was, I think, the thing that most people chimed with
Yeah,
and really got behind. And so the idea of not being able to use your body but still being happy. We understand that deep down that we need to move in order to be healthy and happy. So it's the connection, it's the mind body connection for
yeah.
me, really, is why people need to move in lots of different ways, as many as they can.
Yeah. No, I do agree. And it's quite interesting because like recently I dove into kind of like psychology, right? And like I had like some thoughts and like we go back to like hunters and gatherers. And if you think
Mm,
about it, the physical activity back then for like thousands of years for us as humans was so we can hunt, but then also run away from any other like big animal that tried to like eat us. And then we have evolved from that, like physical activity was part of life because we needed to, is still I think connected to the mind. It's still the same because we,
mhm.
you know, it has only been in the last years that we have kind of changed what fitness is or like why it should be the way it is, right? But like for thousands of years physical activity was part of life, whereas now it's like kind of like, oh yeah, I will, you know, exercise so I can look good. But no, your
Mhm.
body, your mind, your primal self had to
Mhm.
be fit to
Yeah,
hunt and then also to run away.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of exercise just now? Like, what's your thing at the moment? Are you a gym guy or a sport guy?
um I am a gym guy right now. I used to, but I also cycle.
Good.
um the thing is, so personally I have dislocated my kneecap twice and I have like a
Wow.
bad right knee. Okay, so I cannot play football, I cannot play like intense, I think, activities. I can run, I can cycle. Cycling is better for my knee.
Mhm.
And then I go to the gym, and at the gym I will do weight lifting and then also
Yep.
some like basic body weight exercises. So for example, like, you know, your pull-ups, your dips, squats, and then also like push-ups.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good range of stuff. Yeah, my son's knees are shocking, and he's
Yeah.
only 14 just now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he can't get a surgery to correct it. So he's like unable to run properly.
Yeah.
His knees just they'll dislocate several times over the course
uh,
of a day, and they just like pop out. It's pretty. He's dealing with it very well. He's very
yeah.
positive about it, but the yeah, it's a big barrier to overcome for you.
100%. Yeah, like mine, the first time it popped out was like when I was 16. And it was just like very randomly, like, you know, you move your body but not your like
Yeah,
feet, and it tuck, and it just pops out. And I was like, wow. I have gone to physio, they have told me exercises, but like, um so it's better now. But
yeah,
still I find like football, like high intensity, like sprinting and then stopping
mhm,
and then sprinting and stopping, quite demanding on my knee. And like once the one time I played football, like it swelled the next day, and I was like, nah,
yeah,
I'm not gonna do that again. Like there's no point.
yeah.
Yeah,
You've got to make a quality of life adjustment, and I think that's
exactly.
where like something a guy who was an international strength and conditioning dude. He was like a coach for the top guys in the All Blacks in the New Zealand rugby team. He's really well regarded.
Hmm.
And his mantra was good sport begins where good health ends. So you do need to be realistic. Like if you want to be absolutely amazing at a sport, you are burning the candle at both ends. You're using up your health in order to maximize your sport.
Yeah,
Because if you've got loads of recovery time and you're in perfect shape all the time, it means you're either the 1 in 7 billion people who can achieve that,
yeah,
or you're just not pushing it enough and there's still gas in the tank to keep going.
yeah,
So do you want sport or do you want health?
yeah,
And the whole sort of red pill, blue pill thing, it's like choosing sport all of the time doesn't necessarily work. But some people, like going into sort of the mental health angle,
hmm,
some people need that sporty bit. They have
yeah,
to compete,
yeah,
they have to be driven.
yeah,
So you need to then balance that up. For every sports session, you need a health session. For every intense bit, you need some recovery. So where is your balance really? How much sport and how much health? And I think as you progress through life from your 20s to your 30s, I'm in my 40s,
Yeah.
you find that you have to balance much more on the health side. And that sort of sliding scale goes closer and closer to health the longer you get into your journey. And you end up, I think, just doing loads of maintenance work instead of actually progressing ahead with all the other bits. You're maintaining and maintaining.
Yeah.
And then you're, to get a bit morbid,
Yeah.
preventing the eventual slide. You know, you are just trying to stay out of the nursing home, essentially, is why a lot of people get into health and fitness and training, especially if they're in their 30s and they're not in great shape. They sort of realize that unless they change something now, it is going to be a much harder turnaround. Like if
Yeah.
you're somebody in your 20s, you've got so much energy and recovery, like you have no idea. You can bounce back from all sorts of things in your 20s. In
Mm.
your 30s, it gets a bit tougher. In your 40s, it gets tougher again.
Yeah.
And you do need to sort of find that balance of sport and health. And where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
And are you exercising for your mental health or for your physical health?
Mm.
And there is sort of a bit of triangulation that needs done.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with clients, the vast majority of the time it's for health. There's
Yeah.
very few people have a specific sporting thing and they just want to be well, feel well, move well, and just live well. And that's my sort of angle, is to support that with them in my work. And every personal trainer will be broadly the same.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I think like for someone like in their early 20s, I have started seeing what you're saying about like, sports is now becoming more health, right? But
Yeah,
someone in their early 20s, they're like, nah, what are these guys talking about? Like, I can play football twice a week and I'm fine, like
yeah.
no joints, like no knee pain, no nothing. And then like
It's
with
just not fair, isn't it? It's
yeah,
not fair.
it's not. And then, like for example, we went with work and we played football, and we are age range 24 to like 35, and you could see even ourselves, like the group that is like between 28 and 30. We are like, whoa, like why are my knees hurting? Why can I play only half an hour, and then the second half is like horrible? It's just like jogging, chasing the ball. Like you cannot even chase the ball. You
Yeah,
just yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. Put the goal. Um, so yeah, it's quite interesting, and also like I do agree with you. I think at the end it is about health. Like for example, I see that from my parents as well. They're
yeah.
like 60, 65 years old, and it's like they do need to start treating their body better, because the more you age, the more muscle you want and you need to
Hmm.
maintain your body.
Yeah, the sort of the aging it's called sarcopenia is the technical
It's
term, where
like,
you lose muscle as you get older.
yeah,
And it is a decline. If you want to be this fit when you're 80, you're going to decline at this ratio, this speed. So
yeah,
you need to be this fit when you're 20
yeah,
or this fit when you're 30. So you're trying to get up to that level so that you can be at that level there. Because if you're only at this level here,
yeah.
this bit, your 80-year-old bit comes down quite badly. So we're trying to get as fit as you can when you're as young as you are, and then, you know, pick your battles with sporting bits as you get older.
100%. No, I do agree. So, what would you say is the difference between following a program that you find on the internet and
Mhm.
hiring a personal coach that
Yeah.
will create a tailored, specific training schedule for you? What's the difference between like just going to the gym and, on the other side, having a personal trainer that you go
Yeah.
with him? And
Yeah. I mean, the major difference is probably cost. I'll be honest.
sure,
When
yeah,
you
yeah, 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 for sure,
There's a
yeah,
huge financial investment in getting sort of any sort of expert help with anything.
yeah,
But the difference in the results is going to be quite massive as well. There's a broad way of approaching strength training. For example, if somebody just wanting to go to the gym and do things to get a bit more muscle
yeah,
in a generic sort of way, then they're going to pick something off the internet and it'll say you do this exercise, that exercise, 3 times 12, 3 times 12, 3 times 12, all the way down, and add a bit more next time you're in, and that's absolutely fine. Straight off the top, the biggest change you can make is going from doing nothing about your health and fitness to doing something. To go from 0 out of 10 to 1 out of 10 will have the biggest difference. If you're already a 7 out of 10 and you manage to get an 8 out of 10, that difference in the quality of your life will never be as great as the difference of going from 0 to 1. So if somebody's going to go to the gym with something they found on the internet, that is by far better than them not doing it because they can't do personal training or can't do another thing. So if anybody's sort of taking on board all the points we've got, the biggest change you can make to physical health, mental health, whatever it is, your financial health, is going from doing absolutely nothing about it to doing something helpful about it.
Yeah.
So that first step of going on the internet, finding your program, and then turning up to the gym and getting it done is a huge thing, and it shouldn't be played down at all. But the difference in effectiveness is going to be huge if you're going from looking at somebody who has no knowledge and finding the thing on the internet, looking at YouTube tutorial videos as they walk around the gym, and having somebody with a personal trainer beside them. It's a massive change. It's very hard, even as somebody who's done a lot of training, it's hard to check your own form. So I was
Yeah.
advertising a handstand class I was doing. So
Yeah.
I did a handstand and I had some videos of me doing various things, and I thought that'll be great. One take for everything, and it's all done. And no, I had to go in and change a lot of stuff because I hadn't actually videoed my form for a while. And my handstand was going up and then it was squint. It just went off to the side. So I had to re-change it back to the middle. And I hadn't noticed because when you're in yourself, you get used to it.
Yeah.
And then your next one's a little bit off, but it's not off enough for you to realize.
Yeah.
Then that becomes normal. Then this becomes normal. Then that becomes normal.
Yeah.
So unless you're getting the check-ins with somebody and you're already aware of it, your form's never going to be good. And with gym routines, form, the cadence of how you're approaching the weight, the range of motion you're using are all super critical. How long you're waiting in between. Do you need to try harder? Do you need to try less hard? That's where the personal trainer is going to use their experience to look at what you're doing and really optimize it. So it's not so much the difference of going from doing nothing to something, but a personal training approach is going to very quickly accelerate you up that scale of out of tenness to really take you up a bit further. If you're in a good CrossFit facility, for example, the coaches will come around and correct your form. If you're in a good uh, like pure gym type gym and there's people wandering around like trainers, they should be approaching you to help you with things. They'll be trying to obviously get clients, that's what they do, but hopefully they're there to say, and you could do this a bit more safely, get more quality out of it.
Yeah.
It's the direction and the training, to be honest, Paris. It's somebody being able to say, move this slightly differently and get an
Yeah.
awful lot more out of it. And the more you get out of it, the more motivated you are. And the more motivated, the more you're going to keep going back to it lifelong.
Yeah.
I do try to encourage a bit of independence with clients, and I'll very subtly start to step back a little bit
Mhm.
and stop telling them certain things, and they'll just pick it up and go. And it's not like you're doing yourself out of a job, it's so that I don't have to talk then, so I can talk about something else.
Yeah.
Because if you're teaching somebody and you're talking all of the time, that's no longer teaching, it's just like a monologue.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're trying to avoid. Is personal training something you've taken advantage of before?
Myself, yes. So I did the personal training back 2018, and I did it for a month because what you said
Mhm.
about form, I think for me it was the form that I was like, oh, I really want to improve my form. Because, like, for example, again, like with my knee, I also have like lower back pain sometimes, and I'm
Yeah,
like, what's going on? Um, but yeah, so I had done a personal trainer, and it is something that I would consider again, to be honest. Because, like, for example, I go to the gym, so I go 3 times a week. But then now it's like, okay, how can I improve it? And I think you reach a point where you can improve by yourself, but then at the same time, having that personal coach to show you this, maybe the small adjustments, but then also create a tailored specific, a program for you, you will be able to see better results, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some clients with very specific sort of, I don't know, restrictions, I suppose. Like
Okay.
your knee is obviously going to be a restriction for certain things.
I don't know. I do wonder as well if an older kind of person would benefit more with a personal trainer than a young person.
Yeah.
You know,
It's interesting. It'd be different things. I think a younger person would benefit from finding out what they're supposed to be doing, like what is good form, what is
yes,
how does their body work, which lifts work for their body. Are they
yeah,
best using like if in terms of traditional gym equipment, are they best using like a barbell or dumbbells for a particular thing? For me, barbell bench press annoys my shoulders, so I use dumbbells, and I've found that out from trial and error. So it would be helpful if everybody knew how to use standard gym equipment at a fairly early age. But then what happens is your body changes. So you need a refresher at some point when you're in a different age and stage. And then that repeats and repeats and repeats. So there's always a need for education and re-education. I think
yeah,
if you were going to put a like make me make a choice, I would
mhm,
probably say the younger people so that they can have the longest benefit over the whole life. Like people hate PE in school. A lot of kids hate. I didn't like PE at school, and I was involved in sport outside of school. There was just something about PE that I just didn't enjoy. It was mainly, I don't know, running up and down in the rain in Scotland playing football, and it wasn't my thing at all. So people have that experience of sport, health, and exercise, and it's a real shame that that isn't what all sport, health, and exercise is. Because when you leave the school environment, it's a completely different thing. It's very personal. There's loads of options and choices, but you need to know what they are. So if there was a wee magic wand thing and you could educate people, it would be in that sort of area that I would. Maybe it's because I used to work in a lot of schools, and you see the benefits that you can have, even providing it. Showing somebody a positive experience of exercise at a younger age means they have a
yeah,
longer experience of positive association with exercise. So they're more likely to experience less barrier in their head of enjoying it later on.
yeah,
I usually find if an older person's approaching you wanting to exercise, they're pretty motivated and they know what they want a lot of the time. You don't find a
yeah,
65-year-old coming in going, I should probably exercise. They know what they
yeah,
want. They're
yeah,
there
yeah,
for
yeah,
a reason.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They come with a specific goal and they say,
Yeah,
like, I'm 65. I'm now reaching kind of like the last kind of stage of my life. So I want to maintain and keep it as healthy as I can. Keep my body as healthy as I can for as long as I can, so I can enjoy my family, my grandkids, whatever. No, it's an interesting one, and I do agree with you. I think like teaching young kids basic, as you said, like the right form, the standard kind of equipment, dumbbell, kettlebells, barbell, and how to use them properly, because I think a lot of people don't even know how to use them right.
yeah, yeah.
um,
It's frightening as well. 'Cause you
it's so
see
important. Yeah,
mountainous, angry men lifting and screaming and shouting, and it's
yeah.
quite off-putting for a lot of people.
I wonder if it keeps people away who want to start exercising, right? And
No,
they want to go to the
definitely.
gym because they see their body, or they're like, I want to make a difference,
Yeah.
to my body, but they do not go to the gym
Mhm.
because they don't know how to use the equipment, and they don't
Yeah.
want to be made fun of if they
Yeah.
go to the gym and they're like, how do I lift, or how do I do a
Yeah.
chest press, you know yeah,
There's a lot of independence and pride to be gained from being able to go into a new environment. As a
mm,
general principle, if it could be a
yeah,
boxing club, it could be a chess club, whatever it is. If you're intimidated by it and you overcome it, that's a
yeah.
big boost to your mental health, your resilience as well.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him about the podcast, and he said, like, you need to kind of ask questions for as broad of an audience as possible. And for me, like, I started going to the gym, and it was, fine. I have no kind of issues. But there are people out there who cannot
Mhm.
go to the gym, I think,
Yeah.
because, like, for social anxiety, or they don't know how to use the equipment, and etc. So they just don't go.
People are in the situation where they're thinking the gym is intimidating. Yes, of course it is, because you're not used to it. Everything's intimidating to an extent if you're not used to it. I try to challenge myself to do something different in about February, March this year, and I went to learn how to go tango dancing, and
Yeah.
it's really hard. That's all I'll say. It's really because it's not there isn't like a structure to it, and I'm used to a
Yeah.
structure to dancing. with
Yeah.
like Scottish country dancing at school. It's 5, 6, 7, 8, turn around, go down there. But I don't know what dance that is. I was just making it up. But the tango is like improvised, and it's all about the pressure of the chest between the two dancers. Completely different, and it was really, really hard for me to get. And I'm not a dancer at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I play music. I can clap in time, but in terms of dancing, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
quite intimidating for me when you're in a room full of people. Lots of them have done it before, and you rotate round partners, and there'd be
Hmm.
somebody who was really skilled would suddenly be your partner, and then you're feeling like the worst person ever
Yeah.
because they're so smooth, you're so clunky, and you're in
Yeah.
the same space doing the same thing. But I flip it round and say, if I was the skilled person, what would I be thinking of the unskilled person? Why am I assuming that they're being critical? Because I wouldn't be critical. I would now be coaching now. I'll be learning from somebody else, but now I'm the coach. So it's just if you want advice, if you're in a gym and you want advice, you go up to the biggest, strongest person in the gym and say, "Do you mind if I ask you what the best thing that I could do for this particular muscle group?" Because chances are, if they're a big, strong person in a gym, they've done a lot of stuff, and they won't be impressed by screaming teenagers maxing out on the bench press. They're going to be more impressed as somebody who comes up and asks them a directive question, and they will give you information unless they're just about to lift a heavy weight and they're getting in the zone, they're getting their sports bit on or their health bit on, then you do need to sort of give respect people's time and space. But if they're hanging around texting their phone and you go up and say, "Excuse me, you look like you really know what you're doing around here. I need to do something for this muscle group. What would be the best thing to do?" They'll give
Yeah.
you an answer,
Yeah.
and they're not going to tell you to bolt at any point.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
experience of talking to people in gyms that are the most sort of developed, they'll be the people that will give you the best advice a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. I now go to Newfield at Omni Center,
Hmm.
and there are some like guys inside there, and I'm like, he must be training for a very long time because he has a very good physique. So what I see, like, when I go to the gym, is that like a lot of people are on their headphones,
Hmm.
but you do see the people, big, like the fit people, etc., that are not on their headphones,
Yeah,
and some of them can look approachable, but then also it's up to you to have kind of the will and be like,
yeah,
you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, or I know what I'm doing, but let me ask, someone who looks that they know what they're doing,
yeah.
a simple question. And I think that also goes to your social skills, right? Like it helps your social skills, and that's a good thing as well. And even if they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like, I'm busy with my exercises," that's fair. But if they could show you one or two exercises, let's say it's for chest,
Hmm.
you will benefit so much more having asked them than not asking at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's move on to mental health. I think we have covered a lot about fitness. What are your strategies for maintaining a positive mindset at the beginning of someone's fitness journey? So, for example, like, how would you go about encouraging someone to not quit,
Yeah.
after a
Yeah.
month of going to the gym?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky bit, isn't it? Because you get all this, you spend 6 months paying for a gym subscription you're not using. You eventually turn up to the gym, and within a month, you're still not the world's greatest ripped, fit person in the whole world after a whole entire month, and it's quite frustrating. I think it's being realistic about what the your expectations are after a month. And I would encourage people to maintain their motivation and their positivity by setting a goal. If I have a new client in, I'll give them a month's challenge, and I'll give them a maximum 2 or 3 things to achieve in the month, and one or two of them is in the gym, and one will be outside of the gym. One might be to have fewer of the treat foods that we've identified, and change that for another healthier type of treat thing. So that might be a nutrition thing. But usually, one of the goals is to not miss a session for a month. So the actual physical change and the weights you're lifting, they might not change too much. They should do in the first month, especially if you're untrained,
Yeah.
for various reasons I can go into if you like. But the first sort of 8 weeks, you're going to get a lot of gains in strength without changing too much about your body as your nerves wire up better for everything.
Yeah.
And then in that 8 weeks, you're going to get a bit stronger, but you're not going to look hugely different unless you're
Yeah.
doing some very hefty dieting, which is unlikely if you're going from totally untrained to now
Yep.
I'm doing stuff. Like that black white change, huge indicator for failure. It's a gradual change
Yeah.
from one state to another that has got a greater chance of success.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, for someone who goes to the gym, right, or who wants to start, would you have a goal of like go to the gym 3 times a week and do only 3 exercises? Like, how would you structure someone who starts
Mhm.
and to stick with it? Like, would you just have it like, even if you go to the gym and you do 3 exercises, be happy and then come, the following day?
Yeah,
How would you do that?
yeah, it would depend on the person. Some people want to go in and go pretty hardcore at it. So
Hmm.
you do have to exercise a bit of judgment and discernment and say, well, this person, the habit's the most important thing. This other person, they want to feel really hardcore. So the way
Hmm.
you set up their gym visit is you might say something like,
Uh,
you're going in for half an hour to 45 minutes. You're going to do
okay.
this whole laundry list of things in 45 minutes, and then you're going to get out the door because we're going at this one quite intensely. And that person's going to go in, they're going to do the 45 minutes, and it's going to be quite continuous, quite intense, and going to leave. But because it's half an hour or 45 minutes, including a bit of warming up and all that, it's not going to get them into a hole too much. But they will feel they've done something intense. They're going to feel rewarded by that, and they're going to be able to come back for their next visit without feeling too sore. Whereas if you gave them a 1 hour and a half program, they'd probably go into it, they might thrash themselves to death, and then not make their next
Yeah.
program, feel
Yeah.
terrible, and
Yeah.
disengage with the whole entire thing. So
Yeah.
it's for me, it's getting the right program in place for that person so that
Yeah.
they will do all of their visits, especially in the first 30 days. Give
Okay.
them like the motivation to say the goal here is to do all of these sessions and set it up with that in mind. And the type of session depends on the type of the person. But it would be, let's get all of this done. And I usually try to get, like my own practice is to make sure the program covers all of the necessary areas with enough variation and education so that they can do it on their own. Um, but it is still challenging enough and varied enough that they don't get bored because there's
Yeah.
not many people, and if you're one of these people, you might be, I don't know, but who likes to do the exact same thing every single gym visit. There's not many people that do the exact same movements, exercises, sets and reps every gym visit. People appreciate, well, I'll do this machine on that day and this movement on that day. So there's a little bit of variety to spice things up a wee bit generally helps. But yeah, the
Yeah.
first 30 days are hard because you feel worse, I think, in the
Mhm.
transition period. So once you're fully in, maybe 8 to 12 weeks in, then you're acclimatized. You've got some of the benefits. You've seen a difference in the scale. Maybe
Mhm.
you're consuming because your body's stimulated enough. You're maybe consuming a bit less alcohol. If you're a
Mhm.
smoker, you might be more motivated to cut down, and all of
Mhm.
these things will start to really snowball. Loads of benefits. You'll start to feel really good,
Yeah.
and then that's when it really starts to kick in. But the first month is
Mm.
quite hard. It's where the
Yeah.
should voices are rattling around in your head quite a bit, thinking I
Yeah.
should be doing more, I should be working harder, I should be fit by now. So that's
Yeah.
tough, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Like summarizing what you're saying is that like your goal should be kind of to not miss a session, a gym session.
Yeah.
If let's say, for example, someone who's starting, right? How many times a week would you recommend him or them to go to start with?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's completely brand new, if
Brand
they
new,
were to
yeah.
go from not going at all to
Mhm.
going once a week, that would be amazing. If
Really,
they
even
had
once a week?
Yeah, yeah. If they had the
Yeah.
opportunity to just go once a week and they did that every week for 12 weeks, that's the habit. The whole like mystery and fear of going to the gym is cut away. Once a
Yeah.
week, it's possible to get some sort of improvement. It would take a long time and 100% consistency to make gains long term. Like if you missed a week, that's a huge impact. If you're training 3 times a week and you miss a week, it's much easier to get that back because you're going to go back into a much higher rate of challenge for your body to then like hyper compensate to, because your body gets you exercise, you get a little bit less strong as your body repairs, and then your body says, well, I need to deal with that in the future, so I'm going to grow myself stronger than whatever that was. And if
Yeah.
you're going 3 times a week, you kind of go up that staircase of overcompensation more often, so you get higher up. So if you do miss a week, you're already quite high up, and you're able to sort of jump back up again.
Yeah. And then what would you say is the maximum for a beginner? Like for example, like
Yeah,
their ego, they have their ego, they're like 22 years old, 25 years old, and they're
yeah,
going to be like, yeah, I'm going to start the gym because they've seen a movie, like, whatever, like the motivation,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wherever they got their motivation. What would be the maximum days that you would recommend to someone who's just starting out?
Yeah. So if they're going from I've never done anything to I now
Mhm.
want to become fitness god, I would
Yeah.
say you can absolutely go like 6 days a week as long as
Okay.
you're changing what you're doing on different days. And that's
Yeah.
where a trainer or a good authority on the information
Mhm.
would be very helpful. Somebody
Yeah.
who's got good experience. And you can get some people like that online, but you'd have to have a balance of every strength training day would be full body. So you
Mhm.
wouldn't necessarily go lower body, upper body, core, or push pull legs, or the other ways you can split these things up. It would be full
Yeah.
body every day, with every other day being a cardio type session. So steady state for 45 minutes or something like that, or some sort of moderate intervals, not like extreme high intensity stuff. So somebody who's brand new to training could go in, could do their 3 sets of 12 and 4 different exercises for a push, a pull, something with the quads, something with the exercise in the back of the hips,
Mhm.
a hinging exercise, and then next day, bit of cardio stuff, come back into whatever they did in the first day, bit of cardio stuff, back into whatever they did in the first day again, and then maybe take a couple of days off. So they could do a Monday to Friday. The
Mm.
limiting factor is what you can recover from, not
Yeah.
what you can perform.
Yeah, because I have heard on the recovery, I have heard like people who say that, like, you can just go 3 times a week at the gym because that allows your body to recover properly, and then
Mhm.
you can lift heavier. So even by going 3 times a week, but because you lift heavier, you can see bigger progress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
as
would
well.
just be cautious of your form if you're throwing on the
Yeah.
heavy weights straight away. So that's usually why, with a newer client, I would use a different squat variation on each day. So that if they're doing something wrong, it's
Uh,
not going to hurt their joint 3 times a week. It's going to hurt their joint once a week. And then they
yeah.
do another variation, which maybe they're doing it not quite right, and it's maybe going to annoy the joint in a different way,
Yeah.
but then it's not the same bit.
Yeah.
So that would be my sort of motivation for that.
Why do you think people do not stick once they start? They kind of lose the motivation after a month
Yeah.
of going to the gym.
I think it's because they don't get um, whatever they expected at the start
Yeah.
doesn't happen immediately. So it's
Hmm.
normally down to assumptions and expectations,
Yeah.
and it's the change in their lifestyle as well. Like the cost of going to the gym limits a lot of things that previously were pleasurable and rewarding, and they've
Yeah.
not had the big payout of looking ripped and buff after 4 weeks. So it's quite easy to drop out at that point. For me, that's usually the pattern I would see if somebody starts exercising. They
Hmm.
realize that it is quite a long haul.
Yeah.
So the way around that is to set a reasonable goal for the first month, and then the next month, and then the next month, and
Yeah.
have a reasonable goal for that.
Yeah.
The example I come back to is a guy who was, I think he weighed something like close to, an American guy, about 600 pounds, and he'd been gaining something like 50 pounds every 6 months for the last 3 years, and he'd yo-yoed before that. So when they said, "What is your weight loss goal?" he said, "I want to weigh 600 pounds this time next year." And they said, "Well, that's not a weight loss goal." And he goes, "Well, at the moment, my weight's going up like this. two
Yeah.
years ago, I was 400 pounds. Now I'm 600. If I can flatten out over 12 months, then that'll be a massive achievement because I've got so many habits that I need to get rid of." So that's a very extreme example of working out for health and approaching diet with health. But if you're somebody who's never exercised before, your first month is to turn up to all the sessions. Your
Yeah,
second month
just
might
go. Yeah.
be to get better at all of the movements. And the
Hmm.
month after that, you might then want to say something like adding a bit more weight. Obviously, you're progressing through the weight the entire time, but
Yeah.
your focus on each month, if you're going to have one goal, would be adherence first of all, and then
Yeah.
it might be a little bit of skill, like we talked about at the very start, like the awareness, the balance, the coordination. If you approach it like that, what does it feel like to be in the gym? You need to be there every time for the
Yeah.
first month. Then after that, you get your balance. You find out how to sit in the machines, uh, where to go and get everything. You're not wandering around lost anymore, so you're more
Hmm.
happy and confident, and that sort of approach. And then coordination, you're getting a bit more skilled with the stuff. And obviously, it's going to take longer than 12 weeks. But if we're going to boil it down, that would be the
Yeah.
sort of approach I would recommend to anybody that's less confident about exercise and getting into this sort of thing. Is that if they were to start, focus on just going to the gym and doing the things first. Because what will happen is that if you turn up and you do it consistently, all of the benefits will arrive. If you've been given a nutrition plan and you do it, all of the benefits will arrive at some point. It's only
Yeah.
by not doing it that they don't arrive. And that's a simplification, but it is the way it is. If you're struggling with energy balance in your diet and you're provided with a nutrition plan, if you do follow it, there will be a better energy balance in your diet. If you're
For
given
sure.
a fitness plan and you follow it, there will be a better result to your fitness. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the most complicated, difficult thing. The energy that a new exerciser is bringing to the whole thing is the energy to actually turn up and
Yeah.
then to stick to it. And if you
Yeah.
sort of make it as simple as possible, like all I have to do is turn up and all I
And
have to do is stick to it, that's
yeah.
two things. It's not hundreds of things.
Yeah.
And it just
I th-
simplifies things down.
yeah. No, I do agree with you. And it's quite interesting because, like, for example, one mindset I have about exercising is that it's a marathon and not a sprint. You know, like, I 100% agree with you with the expectations as well. Like, you cannot expect from nothing to go to 10. Like, I really like your analogy 0 to 10, right? You can't go from 0 to 10, not even
No,
0
not
to
at all.
5. The next, the next number is 1. You will
Yeah,
go to 1. Do not have the expectation that you will go to 10.
no.
And just sticking to the sticking to it as well, like going, if you have said to yourself, or you have a personal trainer and you have said 3 times a week it is, like, no, as you say, like, no cutoffs, like, do not let yourself down. And I think, as you said, like, just stick with it is the most kind of powerful.
It's the hardest thing, like turning up.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Find the big challenge to people going to the gym isn't always that they don't want to go to the gym. It's the
Yeah,
fact that they've maybe got kids to get to school in the morning. They've then got to get to work. They've got to pick up the kids after school and put them to like daycare. Maybe they've got a second job, or
yeah,
maybe they've got other commitments in the evening. And then by the time they've got free time, it's 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And at that point, you've done a lot of things in your day. So
yeah,
it's finding the time in the week. I've got a client just now who's really struggling to find time in the week because she
yeah.
does technically have time, but
Hmm.
her job can just suddenly expand on a given day. And if we've
uh,
agreed 5 o'clock on a Monday, 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, but then suddenly on a Wednesday, because she works in a school, there's a
mhm.
critical issue that she, in her senior role, needs to deal with. She has to deal with it. You can't
Yeah,
not deal with it.
yeah,
It's like medicine in a way that if that child needs that support at that time and you've got a duty of care, you need to respond to that.
you have
So
to.
she does
Yeah.
technically have the time. Does she actually have the time every week? It's a challenge. So how do I, as somebody running a business providing a service, how am I able to allocate her time elsewhere in the week without taking away time from other clients? And that's where the challenge comes in for me because I want to support and help, but we do have a challenge with like business constraints also. So
Yeah.
whether these things do happen. So people on shifts have a huge challenge. Like how do they engage in training in their own terms in the terms of a provider. Um, and that usually is the biggest. They're motivated to turn up, of course they are, but what do they do with their time? And the response to that is to, at the start of the week, set your expectations and your assumptions and have the backup plan. So what I'll do with this current client is
Hmm.
we'll say, if you can't do then, we'll go then. If you can't do this, we'll do that. And hopefully the chances of losing two slots, like one after another due to work things, is a bit lower
Yeah.
than losing one slot in the week. And we'll work on it that way. It's always having the option. So if somebody says at the start of the week, these are my shifts, these are when I will exercise, and if this shift extends, I will then swap to then. The decision's made at the start of the week, in the same way that when you turn up to the gym, all you have to do is follow the list of the things. You don't have to make the decision to do it. You start the week, you set everything up, and then you follow the list of the things.
Yeah.
And it's much easier than sitting at home going, well, I can't do then. What else will I do? And then having to come up with an alternative date when you're tired. You don't make good decisions when you're tired. You need to
Yeah.
sort of do it when you're well at the start of the week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why, if anybody's starting off at the gym, the hardest bit is turning up because of
Yeah.
time. It's not always because of energy and motivation. So sort your
Mm.
time out at the start, like you would do with food prep. Start
Yeah.
that at the week, say, I will do these things. And then
Yeah.
if your energy changes during the week, you already know how to substitute and change because you've already written it down. You've
Yeah.
already got it down there. This is my other time to go and
Done that
exercise.
one.
It's really
Yeah.
easy to say, but when you're tired and in the moment, it's quite hard to execute. So if you've done
Yeah.
as much thinking as possible when you're fresh, you can just do the things later on. It makes it a lot easier that way.
It's a very interesting one because, like, for example, for a period of time I would go to the gym in the morning.
Mm,
My to do the first thing I would do was going to the gym and then work, because, like, I guess, like, you may have that with your clients as well. Like, you wake up in the morning and then you have your gym session at like 6 p.m. after work, but then you had a tough day at work and you're considering at 5:30, oh, should I message him and
mm,
cancel my session or not? But if you have it as a priority, this is maybe where discipline comes in. If you have it that, like, no, regardless, I will go after my work, even if I had a bad day, a good day, whatever, 6 p.m., I will be at the gym. But then also, potentially for people who don't have time, is like, okay, how important is exercising? How important is your fitness, right? As a goal in your life, and then make it a priority. And by scheduling it as early on the day,
mm.
might help with that kind of aspect. I don't know if you would agree with that. Like,
Yeah,
you're more
I
than
think it's
willing to.
honoring your own physiology
Yeah.
is the way to go. I'm not naturally a morning exerciser, so
Okay.
I have done morning exercise before.
Yeah.
But naturally it doesn't suit my sort of energy.
Okay.
And world records are rarely set in the morning. They're normally set in the afternoon and the evening on a given day for a given sport.
Yeah.
People generally have more energy in the afternoon, not
Mm,
necessarily the late evening, but in the afternoon you generally peak a little bit in the sporting context anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's try the morning thing, try the
yeah.
evening thing, and what works for you best in terms of you hitting most sessions is the one to stick with.
Yeah.
Like, you don't
True.
have to do anything.
Stick.
There
Yeah.
isn't a good on this. It's all good.
Yeah. Let's move on to nutrition as well. So, on nutrition, what would you say are the key principles of a balanced diet, and how does a good diet benefit also your fitness goals?
Yeah, it's so critical.
Mhm.
Your energy balance, your diet has a huge impact on how you look and what you can do and how you feel. And we
Yeah.
all know that. It's not anything new. But to really put it into perspective, your energy balance in terms of calories in, calories out, um, for your nutrition, it is very hard to exercise your way out of um, an abundance of calories in your diet. Your 50% of all of your energy expenditure comes from just your basic biological processes that are exactly the same in you as they are in you in a coma. So half of your energy is just keeping the machine alive.
Yeah.
The next kind of 12.5% is you creating heat. for your body because you're a mammal and you need to stay warm. 25% of your energy expenditure is then your non-exercise activity during the day. So just you're wandering around, picking things up, putting them down, going for a shower, going up and down stairs. That's your other 25%, which only leaves 12.5% really for exercise. So the other load of it has to maintain fairly similar. So if you're eating abundance of calories, you need to make that 12.5% double, triple, quadruple to really make a dent in that diet. So the main things for nutrition are just to be fully aware and objective and realistic about what you are eating, regards instead of what you think you're eating or what you like to be eating. What are you really putting in your face? In terms of general points, I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not going to sit here
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
tell people to eat specific foods. But
Yeah.
in general, you can't go wrong by adding an abundance of vegetables to your diet. And you can't really go wrong by eating a few less treats every day. There's a lot of benefit to your dopamine to like having I call it entertainment through calories. If you're having entertainment through calories, that's it's not a great way to entertain yourself. There's a German word for mouth boredom as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. And it's just, yeah, your mouth gets bored and you want something interesting, so you eat something tasty. Can
Yeah.
we substitute something tasty? I was chatting to a client a while ago, and
Hmm.
his he had a really odd snack choice because I was
Okay.
trying to say he wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and I was thinking maybe he drinks a lot of beer,
Yeah.
maybe he has a lot of crisps, savory things or sweet things.
Yeah.
So I said, "What's your favorite snack?" And he gave me a bit of a look, and his favorite snack was bags of raw red onions, pre-chopped from
What?
the supermarket. So he would sit in the house
Wow.
watching TV shows with a bag of raw red onions and just eat raw onions at home. He was otherwise a normal person. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Red
so his
onions.
his snacking regime wasn't really open to much optimization for calorie balance because he was
Yeah,
already eating something pretty low in calories and
for
high
sure.
in volume. If you're eating
Yeah.
a lot of vegetables, they occupy a lot of space in your stomach, so they fill you up. They take a
Yeah.
bit more chewing usually, especially if it's fresh leafy vegetables. There's a
Hmm.
lot more chewing, so your
Yeah.
body takes longer to get the food in, and you've got about 20 minutes of eating before your body goes, actually, I'm full now.
Yeah.
It sends a little signal, which is why sumo wrestlers eat this like stew that they have. It's very nutritious, but high
Mm.
in calories, and they scoff it down at great speed so that they can get their 20 minutes optimized and put on as much
Yeah.
weight as possible. So if
Yeah.
you can make your dinners take longer to eat, you're going to eat less of it.
Yeah.
So an abundance of extra vegetables is going to help if you feel that you're taking on board more calories than you're using. And
Yeah.
fewer treats is obviously going to help as well. The thing I would say about
Sure.
any sort of treat food, if you're trying to cut it down, you need to replace it with some form of treat rather than replacing it with some form of thing you don't like, because then it becomes a
Mm.
punishment. And it's
Yeah,
hard to replace a treat with a punishment in your life. It just
for
doesn't
sure.
work very well. Nobody
No,
wants that.
for
You know
sure.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. It's very difficult. I do agree with you. I think people, and also I think it's biological. Like, we want as many calories as possible, and because like
Yeah,
now, like the companies who make our food put so much calories into our food,
yeah.
like a Mars, a bar of Snickers, whatever. It has so many calories, and it tastes so good. Your
Mm.
body or your mind wants more of that because it knows that it's good and it's beneficial because it thinks that it's like carbs. So, give me Sneakers. Like, but of course, like we know, like logically, that it's not a good thing.
There's a good term called it's hyper palatable. So it's
Oh,
not just tasty, it's hyper palatable food.
yeah,
It's full of fats and sugars that
yeah,
both of which your body wants and will eat as
yeah,
much of as it can. So
yeah.
the satiation, the amount you're sated by food, is something to bear in mind. And if you're struggling
Mm.
with your energy balance and you want to make your diet generally more healthy, have more protein and more vegetables in your diet. They've got high satiation. They occupy a lot of space in your gut. Protein takes a lot of digesting compared to carbs and fats. They just kind of slide through. protein takes a lot more work for your body to do. So you feel fuller faster, you feel fuller for longer, and it reduces the number of times through the day when you're tempted by something else, something hyper palatable. As a general outlook on for protein, anyway, for like health and fitness, try to exceed a gram a day of protein per kilo of body weight.
Yeah, because I was about to say that, like, for example, so someone who goes to the gym, right, goes 3 4 times a week. Like, for example, I would consider myself being the average person who goes to the gym 3 4 times a week. I lift weights. My diet is quite clean. Would you recommend to people like me, I guess, like, to just eat more protein and, like, vegetables, and like maybe less carbs? Would that be an optimal diet?
I mean, it depends on the goal. I mean, you look like quite a
Okay.
lean guy, so you're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah. I'm
overly,
70 kilos. Yeah.
yeah, you're not,
Once,
you know,
yeah, 178.
you're not going to trouble a bus if you jump on it. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's not an issue. So if you're
Yeah.
in that sort of fortunate position of having favorable body composition genetically, then
Yeah.
you've got a lot more latitude with your diet.
Mm,
You can have an excess of treats
yeah.
and recover from it. But there are people whose genetics simply do not allow them leeway in what they eat if they want to maintain a lean and healthy appearance,
Yeah.
and you can't control for that. Like on day one of sports science at university, the
Mhm.
guy said, if you want to be good at sport, pick your parents wisely, and that
It's
was
genetics.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all genetics. It's your nature and nurture. If you're generally a fit person, that's
Mhm.
great. Um, but if you're not a genetically fit person, it's really challenging to deal with the little lumps and bumps that just having one Mars bar can have on your whole body. Like if your body hormonally is set up to put on adipose tissue fat as quickly
Mhm.
as possible, then it's going to be hard for you to burn that off before
Yeah.
it becomes fat, and
Yeah.
your diet will be a lot more hard to control.
Yeah, and I guess also there is like the consistency with the gym can be applied probably the same with your food. If once a week you can have like a takeaway, right? Like something not as healthy, whatever, that's fine. But then if you have it 3 or 4 times a week, that
Mm,
will definitely have an impact on your diet, or on, like,
yeah,
your weight, I guess. And mentally also, you will think, oh, like, I had the takeaway, I had like bad McDonald's, whatever,
mhm,
I'm not gonna go to the gym. Or like you compensate going to the gym but then having a McDonald's,
yeah.
which is, again, I don't think it's a good thing.
What I would say is if you're of the opinion that that balances up, a Big Mac has about 500 calories in it. If you
Yeah.
go and sit on an exercise bike and set it to 500 calories, I will see you in the morning. You'll be on it
Wow.
for a
Is it
long time.
is
It's
it
your
that
body.
bad? How many? I didn't know, because like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't count calories. I just eat clean, like
yeah.
chicken, mince, vegetables, rice, pasta, like 5 things
Yeah.
that I eat on a daily
That's
basis.
some good choices. As long as you're getting all your
Yeah.
micronutrients in there as well. This is why they say like a varied diet is good, because
Yeah.
your food's coming from lots of different places where there's different types of soil. So there's
Yeah.
different types of blends of micro, and you don't need a lot of these things like
Yeah.
selenium. You don't need a lot of it. So if you
Mhm.
had like two Brazil nuts every month, that would probably be enough selenium. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a varied diet's a thing. But yes, we're getting a bit sidetracked from that stuff. Yeah, if
Oh, that's
you're it would take maybe about 5 minutes or so if you're
Yeah.
quite fit to do 50 calories on an exercise bike. So if you want to do 500 calories on an exercise bike, you're going at it really heavily for an hour, and it
Wow.
wouldn't be a fun
Yeah.
hour. So
No.
that's one
Yeah.
burger that could take 2 minutes to consume. You would take an hour of pretty intense exercise on an exercise bike to burn off.
Yeah.
Um,
That's crazy.
that's roughly the time that I would take on an exercise bike where you can use your arms as well, like the assault bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
likes the assault bike. So if
Yeah.
you jump on that at some point and do 50 calories and see how long it takes and multiply that by 10 and then add in the fries and the sugary Coke as well. And
True.
suddenly you're
Yeah.
in it.
Because, yeah.
It's a
Wow.
lot. And then you say, I'll have some like a chicken nuggets on the side and a McFlurry, and
Yeah,
before you
yeah,
know
yeah.
it,
That's it.
because your
Yeah,
body is fantastic
yeah,
at taking something that's quite small in size and turning it into kinetic energy. It's
yeah,
very, very efficient because of like the cascade within each body cell. It takes off a little bit of energy very efficiently every time. It's not like putting a whole log into a log burner where most
yeah,
of the heat goes up the chimney.
yeah,
It's it's letting it out very slowly and steadily, very efficiently, so you can take this really small burger and turn it into an hour of exercise,
yeah,
which is fantastic and also terrible
yeah,
if you
yeah.
happen to like burgers.
I
It's
don't think
really hard to get
people.
in line with that.
Yeah, I don't think people understand the calories when it
No.
comes to exercise, because like a lot of people do not a lot of people don't exercise, but like, I have never thought until now to be like, okay, if I were to order McDonald's,
Mm.
as you said, right, how much time do I will I have to spend on a
Yeah.
bicycle at the gym to burn all that? But that's like a very good way of thinking, because then you will be like, okay, cool. Like for example, when you have your hourly rate, right, money wise, with something that you want to purchase. So
Mhm.
let's say you want to purchase something
Yeah.
worth 200 pounds. Then okay, 200 pounds. I need to work 8 hours to purchase that. And I think a good analogy, maybe at the gym, would be to kind of do the same. If I'm going to eat this burger, 500 calories, how much time will I then have to spend at the gym
Yeah.
to remove it, or like, yeah, sweat it out, whatever. Yeah, burn
Just
it.
go to if you're burning fat, you're breathing it out. Funnily enough, that's how you measure how
Ah,
much fat
yeah,
someone's
yeah,
burning.
yeah, yeah.
Is you
I've
strap
heard.
a mask on their face. At university, we had to sit in an environment chamber at -30 just in your shorts with a chest strap on measuring the heart rate, a mask on to measure your breath, thermometers stuck in your ears and on your arms and on your back with all these things all around you, and then cycle away for 45 minutes, as I said, at -30 Celsius. And then your classmate turns around with a sheet and says, out of 10, how hard are you exercising? But then you're able to work out, your calorie expenditure in different sort of temperatures and things. So what I'd recommend, if anybody's thinking of starting some sort of diet and they don't have that concept of calories, when you're at the gym, sit on the exercise bike and do your 50 calories. Find out on your bike how it measures calories and keep going until you've done 50 and time it. And then you've
Yeah,
got a bit of a reference point. Double that to say 100, and then you can really start working out. In 100 milliliters of olive oil, you've got about 900 calories. So that's a lot. And that's 4 shot glasses of olive oil. And if you imagine like a fairly large salad and you go, I'll be healthy, I'll put the olive oil on, and you put
yeah,
50 milliliters of olive oil, which isn't a large volume of stuff to cover all of that leaves and everything. That's 450 calories right there in your face, which is, as we said, it's nearly an hour on the exercise bike just for the
yeah.
dressing of the salad. So
It's
your
ridiculous.
body's really
Yeah,
good at converting energy into movement, but we do need to be aware of what it is that you're doing. And the more bulky, vegetable-y type food you eat, and the more awareness you have about the types of things that are in the food you are eating, I think the
yeah,
easier it is to make some positive choices and separate the treat from the nutrition.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What would you say about supplements? Like I have been going to the gym since, let's say, March. Okay, one of my friends like uses creatine,
Yeah,
a monohydrate creatine, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to try it or not. Would you recommend not creatine, just in general supplements, but like for performance enhancement, I guess,
yeah, yeah.
to everyone, or what's your stance on that?
It's what do you need, really. I had a friend years ago who knew I was into fitness and asked
Mhm.
me which amino acid blend he should supplement with to improve his bench press. And I think people have like the wrong, like he was a very informed, very smart guy. He could program in 4 or 5 different computer languages,
Mm,
but because he'd gone onto some article and he'd found this information that there's amino acid blends and it
mm,
affects different muscle types, he'd assumed that your chest muscle would respond to a specific blend when it absolutely doesn't to that level. If it was, you'd need to be in like the top 0.001% of humanity. Supplements are good if there's a gap somewhere else. And it's very easy to try and use a supplement to solve a problem when the problem is usually solved by something that's not sexy and exciting. This guy wanted a sexy and exciting press the button, make the problem solved solution. Whereas if you look at something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you get start off with like your physiological safety, your physical safety, then your social standing, your self-esteem, and your self-actualization. And it kind of go. It's arguable, but you kind of go up like that. If you look at the sort of McNicoll hierarchy of needs, so the way I would look at it is: are you sleeping enough? Are you hydrated? Do you have adequate energy balance? Are your micronutrients sorted? And are you exercising? If you've solved all of them, then chances are you probably wouldn't need any supplements unless you really wanted to excel at something. If
Yeah.
you're not able to get enough sleep and that's affecting your performance, then you might bridge that gap because you've got kids at home or you've got a busy schedule or you've got commitments of other sorts, then you might use a supplement to bridge that gap. If you're not able to manage your energy balance, you might choose to use something like Huel or a protein blend to
Yeah.
bridge that gap. If you're not
Yeah.
able to get to the gym as often, you might want to use something else to sort of
Yeah.
bridge that gap. So it's
Yeah.
always about you're taking it for a specific purpose and being aware of what purpose you're taking it for. Caffeine's a supplement. You can call whey protein a supplement as well. Creatine, super well studied, very safe, almost no downsides for most people unless it's digestive distress. It does take a wee while to kick in, which for me is something that indicates that it actually works. Because if it's going to take about 12 weeks for your body to sort of fully assimilate it, it means it's not something like caffeine's helpful, but in the moment, it's also very
Yeah.
safe. Whereas the creatine is adding like a fuel to your body
Hmm.
over time. The way creatine works is it basically allows more energy to be stored in your muscles. So it's fairly safe. Creatine's already in your muscles. You're just putting more in a safe and well-studied way. I don't personally use it right now. If I was going to do a lot more interval training, I would use it for that. If I was going to peak for strength, I would use it for that. I do have a high rocks race coming up, which is sort of cardio based and strength based. I could have successfully used creatine for that. I've
Yeah.
chosen not to this time round. I'd like to see how I do without using any
Yeah.
supplements, and then I'll see how I do with a supplement in training. So I'm
Yeah.
using myself as a little experiment with a sort of study group of one, and I'll
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
how we
Yeah.
get on.
I was about to
But
say.
creatine gets used for sprint repeats,
I
basically, and for
see.
strength training.
Hmm.
For it'll allow you to do more sets or more
Yeah.
reps. It doesn't make you stronger, like it
Hmm.
doesn't make the top of your pyramid of strength any
Yeah.
higher up, but it
Yeah.
will mean when you come down from there, you'll be able to do more reps just
Yeah.
lower down. So that means you can stress the muscle more, and that'll make the muscle respond more. So you'll get more stimulus and more effect. So that's what
Yeah.
creatine does. It's pretty
It's amazing.
straightforward. There has
Yeah.
been all sorts of supplements used. You can supplement using, I think, bicarbonate just from your
Okay.
kitchen cabinet, and that
Hmm.
buffers the acidity that's produced through exercise. And it's perfectly legal to use in most sports.
Yeah.
However, I would advise against it because it promotes disastrous digestive consequences if you're
Uh,
not used to it and you've not tested it first. So do not
yeah.
try that and go into the gym for the first time ever. You might be chucked out of the gym.
I would like kind of to summarize, right? So we talked about body, we talked about fitness, mental health, and how kind of to overcome that aspect as well, and then like nutrition. So, what would be your tips, for example, to give to someone right now who are looking to exercise, but then also they have kind of maybe started their kind of journey and they just want to take it maybe to the next level? What would be
Yeah.
kind of your just final thoughts on the three topics that we discussed?
Yeah, sure, of course. So if somebody is trying to get into exercising, I'd say that the most important thing with any fitness plan is adherence to the plan. So first of all, have a plan and then stick to the plan. If you, in quote marks, go to the gym 3 times a week, but you don't really know what you're doing, or you do the same things every time, that's going to be better than not going. You're
Yeah.
going to the gym, great. But if we want to really enhance that, we need to have some sort of plan. And the
Mhm.
plan must involve progression. It's
Yeah.
progressive resistance training is a thing that works. And some people can constantly progress in a linear way and just keep adding more and more and more, and their genetics are great. If you're of a different sort, maybe you can have 2 weeks of progression and then back off for a week, 2 weeks of progression, back off for a week. Some people might manage 3, 4, 5 weeks and then have a back off week, maybe 6 and have a back off week. So progression and having a bit of rest. You still go to the gym, but maybe you do fewer reps at a lower weight, but you still go to the gym. At no point do you stop going to the gym unless you have an actual injury and you're told by somebody, don't go to the gym. So if you're at the gym and you're feeling discomfort spread across a whole muscle group, that's probably just what exercise feels like. But if you're
Yeah.
feeling a very specific point of pain, like a wire has been stretched across you or a pencil has been pressed in, then that's more likely to be something that's doing you an injury. So you want to back off in that sort of situation. But adherence, first of all, and progression would be the second thing, and having a right goal in mind would be like my other top three sort of thing. What are you going to achieve in 4 weeks? And is it realistic? So if you want to lose 5 kilograms of body fat in 4 weeks, you're trying to lose a lot of calories in 4 weeks. It's not going to happen. It's having like a 9,000 calorie deficit every week, which
Yeah.
is quite a lot. You'd
Yeah.
need to be exercising like a mad person. So have a realistic goal, have progression, but most of all, adherence, just turning up and doing the stuff. The biggest
Yeah.
difference is if you're not doing exercise right now, is going from not doing anything to doing something. And it
Yeah.
might be the gym, it might be increasing your steps to 10, 12,000 every day. It might
Mhm.
be going to the salsa dancing class a couple of times more. Whatever it is going from zero to something. And then we
Yeah.
can progress on from there. Because as soon as you're starting to get the benefits, it becomes more and more motivating, and it does start to sort of avalanche and snowball and all of that. And you will accumulate a lot more mental well-being, physical well-being, and it makes it much easier to keep going.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I do like it. I like what you say. I think the consistency and adherence to the plan. Create a plan, stick to it. If you say, X amount of days of the week, I will be going to the gym, stick to it. And as you say, like, for example, start with 1 month without missing any sessions, and then progress as you go. Like, yeah, like it's a marathon. I don't think you need to have the six pack within 12 weeks. Like, you can
Yeah,
wait for that, or like whatever. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
Tell me how. I'd love to. It'd be great.
I know. No, Tony, thank you so much. That was very insightful, honestly, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Paris. You've got some great questions, and you've sort of
Oh, thank you.
drawn a lot out of me that I didn't know was there. That was great.